Hey, good morning, Indiana. Welcome to Who's Left This Week, the only unapologetically progressive Sunday morning news and talk show for the Hoosier State. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers. I am broadcasting from Bloomington, and I have got a packed show today with a great panel of guests set to join me. They will join us here momentarily, but first, just a brief bit of housekeeping. I invite you, if you will, to follow us at whosleft.us. That is the website where you can support this project with a paid subscription. Would really appreciate that. Would also appreciate a follow on social media, where whosleft.us is also my handle on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. Drop the US at Who's Left is my handle on the rest of them. Find me there. Now, you may notice that I've got a lot less logos and a lot less housekeeping than I did last week. We are no longer affiliated with the Project Next Network. I appreciate you for finding me today over here on my own feed. I do briefly want to address that departure. Now, despite what you may have heard in certain sectors, this was a mutual decision, and both parties came to an agreement, or came to the decision sort of independently and at the same time, that our partnership wasn't exactly working. Now, look, I was never a great fit for what they're trying to do there. I am unapologetically brash and progressive, and their goal is to present information without the quote, fear, hate, and division. This is a worthy goal. It is important to have these conversations with your neighbors, and we should continue to have these conversations with our neighbors across whatever divides we may have. But it is important to distinguish between Republican voters and MAGA Republican apparatchiks. The GOP is actively participating in a fascistic, nationalistic project, and it must be called out. Okay? These words have meanings, and it is not bullying to say so. I love Sarah and Tim. I appreciate our time working together, but I told them as we parted ways that I am afraid that their network was falling into a pattern of both sidesism and a false equivalency. Let's be clear. There is no far left counterpart to the far right in America. On immigration, Republicans are rounding up people, illegal, legal, citizens, shipping them overseas without due process. Democrats, the left, don't want to do that. On religious fundamentalism, MAGA Republicans want to install a certain brand of extreme Christian nationalism in our country. Democrats believe in religious pluralism. We do not believe in insisting upon secularism or that there be no religion, a la the Soviet Union. Okay, there is no equivalent. On the economy, Republicans want to completely turn capitalism loose so there are no regulations and hardly any taxes, and that the government does only policing and military and provides no social safety net. Democrats are not purporting that we do communism. We are proposing changes to the market. Republicans are proposing strongman dictatorial rule by Donald Trump. The left is not proposing strongman dictatorial rule by a leftist. We are proposing democracy. These are not equivalent. They are not equally distant from the center. I end every show with the phrase, love each other, Indiana. And I mean it. I am a peaceful, tolerant person. But I fucking hate Nazis. We want to get rid of the fear, hate, and division. But I hate that, that the Republican project has used amplified lies, obfuscation, and yes, fear to divide Americans for decades, keeping us fighting amongst each other while they sell our country for parts. And we should be afraid. They are actively speedrunning fascism in front of our eyes. I'm afraid. But courage is holding that fear and going forward. Anyway, look, I've seen A Christmas Story hundreds of times, as I suspect all of you have. Gene Shepard, writer of that movie, Hoosier, by the way. But listen, if I learned one thing from that movie, it's that when faced with a bully, you do not compromise with the bully. You do not talk nice with the bully. You do not, hold hands and sing kumbaya. You punch the bully in the goddamn face. And that, as Forrest Gump would say, is all I have to say about that. Now, let me welcome my panel to the show today. First, coming on back, repeat guest, Jennifer David. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, Scott.
Once again.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here on this episode. I think it's an exciting time for you to continue to do what you were always doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you dearly. Let us also welcome at this time a newbie. There is Simon Higgs. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Simon, that's a delightful accent. What part of Indiana is that from?
That's predominantly Martinsville. It's a dialect called Martin-Tucky.
Very good. You know, they say that a lot of Southern English that you can trace directly back to like Old English in a way. Did you know that?
Yeah. The thing about dialects is they're very deceptive. You can pretty much accurately put somebody to a geographic region. But it's like my brother went to a different school to me, and it was 3 miles apart. We have totally different accents.
Very good. So also let us welcome our final guest this week, our headliner, if you were, first-time guest, congressional candidate for CD5, Jackson Franklin.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on. How's it going, guys?
Couldn't be more excited to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
So listen, y'all, let's dive in. We're going to go right into the deep end. We're going to start this week with our national stories in a segment I like to call Who Cares? Because we're looking at these international and national stories with the lens of Hoosiers. And we ask, why does this matter to people in Indiana? Why should Hoosiers care about this? So let's open with some headlines. Now, this week, upcoming, we've got an election. And though it's an off-year election, it will be the first major opportunity to check the electoral temperature of the country in the second Trump administration. There are 4 things to look at. In Virginia, polls close at 7 p.m. there. Governors are limited to a single 4-year term. And you remember when Glenn Youngkin was the future of the Republican Party? Vying to replace him are Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears and former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger. Spanberger, also a former CIA agent, is leading in the polls by double digits. Now, in New Jersey, we should begin to see results there shortly after polls close at 8 p.m., where Mikey Sherrill, a former naval officer and federal prosecutor, faces off against current she's also a current U.S. representative. She faces off against Republican former state assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli. Again, the Democrat is expected to win, though polling there is significantly closer. Across the Hudson, in New York City, a high-profile mayoral race will come to an end with Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani facing fascist paramilitary goon Curtis Sliwa and sleazebag Andrew Cuomo. Mamdani, the 34-year-old state assemblyman, is expected to cruise, though polling has tightened somewhat recently. Polls closed there at 9 p.m. on Tuesday. Finally, clear on the other side of the country in California, Governor Gavin Newsom is leading the push to persuade voters there to redraw the state's congressional maps, which had been created by an independent redistricting commission. This is in response to Republican efforts in several states to steal congressional seats via unprecedented mid-decade redistricting. Polls closed there at 11 o'clock on Tuesday night, but last fall, we didn't get final tallies out of California for almost a couple weeks as mail-in ballots trickled in. Just a quick statement. I don't want to get too bogged down in the weeds on any of this, but is there anything particular you're looking at this Tuesday, Jennifer?
I believe, is it Prop 50 in California? I think I'm
Yes.
interested to see how that is. I know folks have varying opinions on whether or not Democrats should also be trying to redistrict when we're opposing them in other parts of the country. So last I heard, I think a huge portion of California does support redistricting there, which is a lot different than here in Indiana. But that's not really who's getting elected, but that vote on Proposition 50 is also very important.
Yeah. Simon, does it concern you at all that Democrats keep nominating CIA agents and and whatnot for our big offices, a la Miss Spanberger in Virginia?
Only when they lose.
Jackson, let me ask you. Oh, sorry. Simon, go ahead.
Oh, no, carry on.
I thought you had, great one-liner. I just wanted to let it stand. So,
All right.
Jackson, let me ask you about Mamdani. It looks like he's going to win. Are establishment types of either party going to let him govern once he takes control?
I think the question, he's obviously going to win. It's what most political analysts will look at. It's a question, will he win by a majority in a three-way race, or will he win by a plurality in a three-way race? So I think this sets the tone for nationwide, of course. And I think he's demanded so much, I don't know, he's garnered so much support at this point that if like the locals in New York City, like the city council people, don't let him govern and like these popular policies, because he floated in there. Well, he's very charismatic, but mostly due to the policy. Like young people turned out in record-breaking numbers, and that's why we have to implement the policies that the people. If we have any respect for democracy, we have to implement the policies that the people voted on.
Well said, sir. So, also this week, we see that there are redistricting efforts underway in multiple states. We mentioned California and Prop 50 there. We're going to talk about Indiana here, obviously, later on in the show. We should note that Virginia's legislature also passed a resolution in the House to give itself the powers to redraw congressional district maps. Their Senate followed up in approving this amendment. In Ohio, their redistricting commission unanimously approved a new U.S. House map that increases GOP odds of flipping 2 Democratic-held seats. In North Carolina, a federal 3-judge panel allowed plaintiffs, including the North Carolina NAACP and Common Cause, to amend their lawsuits to stop redistricting in North Carolina. Voting rights groups there raised alarms that the newly approved map dismantles the Black Belt region's influence in the 1st District and moves counties with significant Black populations out of that district. So, in addition to redistricting, we also see this week that the DNC is moving forward with a new 2028 calendar. They're requiring states to apply by January 16th, which would establish the new lineup for states to be set sometime next year. The committee is using similar criteria for an early calendar slot as in 2022, calling for a regionally diverse set of states. The window could include up to 5 states that would vote before Super Tuesday. In Chicago, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem rejected Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's request to suspend immigration operations on Halloween. This is This comes after he referenced an operation earlier in the week on the northwest side of Chicago in which agents deployed tear gas as children were gathering for a costume parade. Noem, for her part, said, quote, "No, we're absolutely not willing to put on pause any work that we do to keep communities safe," calling Pritzker's request shameful. Well, wouldn't you know, on Halloween, clashes erupted as agents hit Chicago area neighborhoods. Also in Illinois, progressive House candidate Kat Abou-Ghazaleh was indicted for allegedly conspiring to injure officers during anti-ICE protests. This indictment alleges Abou-Ghazaleh conspired with others to impede a law enforcement officer from carrying out his duties by aggressively banging on the car and standing in front of it outside of the Broadview ICE facility. So, team, I want to ask you, before we move on into our deeper stories, what there catches your eye. I'm going to go backwards this time and start with Jackson. Jackson, you know Kat, don't you?
Yeah, well, we've messaged a few times, and we were on a show, Kyle and Kalinske. Crystal Kyle and Friends of Kyle Kalinsche's Secular Talk Show. So we've been in each other's circle for quite some time now, and what's going on with her, with charges being, pending on her, it's just blatant authoritarianism. They want her to, be silenced. They want her to shut her up because she's bringing the national spotlight on the crimes that ICE is committing. And she was peacefully protesting, like blocking pathways that ICE is trying to drive through, and they're human trafficking. ICE is grabbing people off the streets with no due process, sending them to detention centers where there's no clean water, they sleep on concrete, moldy food. So she's doing everything she can, along with many others in that area, to impede this human trafficking. We have a modern day Gestapo. ICE is a terrorist organization that must be impeded by any means necessary. And what this government is trying to do is scare further protest. Shut up people, the critics, get the spotlight off ICE. Let's talk about this congressional candidate who's doing everything she can to fight for the people of her district and the people of this country. So it's just shameful that they're trying to silence political opposition. That's exactly what this is.
Simon, on this DNC calendar thing, you're a Brit. Let me pitch you an idea. World Cup style primary draw. Okay? Democrats, you have, I don't know, primaries every 2 weeks, January through April or May of your year. The year before, there's a big event where states are randomly drawn onto which primary date they're going to be. The event in and of itself can be a way to drum up excitement for the coming year's election, and it sort of randomizes which states have their primaries at which time, so certain states don't get to hoard the important primary dates. What do you think?
I think the whole concept of staggered primaries is a really, really bad idea. And the reason I say that is because historically, you will get halfway through primary season and they've already declared the winners. And so those states that still have to vote really aren't given us a say. I think primaries need to be held on the exact same day, just like the general election. So, I mean, I'll give you an example of that. 2016, we were living in California at the time, and we were moving to Indiana. So we did the primary in California and we did the general in Indiana. Basically, as we came around for the California primary, the weekend before, the Associated Press announced that Hillary was now the winner. So you're looking at one of the biggest states, fourth largest economy in the world, that has been effectively neutered. And part of the reason that they did that was because California was more likely to go to Bernie. So,
yeah,
and I've seen it time and time again where you will have a candidate, especially in the presidential race, you'll have a candidate drop out. Not mention any names, Pete. And all of a sudden, it's like they've traded that withdrawal for a cabinet position. And the same thing with Tim Kaine. He gets the vice presidency for leaving the DNC chair position and giving it to the person that was in charge of Hillary's 2008 campaign. So you have a lot of seats being moved around, and positions and promises. And I mean, the thing is, when you go back to the 2016 election, it would have been a no-brainer for Hillary to pick Bernie. That was a slam dunk win. But she didn't, because she'd already promised it to Tim Kaine within the insider circles of the DNC. So on the whole, I think primaries on different days are really bad ideas.
Damn, man, Simon, I thought with that football reference, I was really going to get you there. Jennifer, thoughts on these headlines?
I appreciate Simon bringing that up because I agree. I feel like it takes away a lot of people's choice if the winner's already picked. Like you just, the states that are quote unquote down ballot, they don't really get much of a choice. And I know, we traditionally started with Iowa, and I think some of the concerns, at least for me, is that if we're leaving out a lot of diversity too, and allowing other people, our Black and brown voters, a choice if we are just starting with certain states, and those are getting the choices ahead of time. But it would be interesting to see us all do it at the same time. Simon has a way of looking at things and bringing things up in a way that maybe not really thinking about. But all of what he's talking about with the positions and moving them around and promises and stuff, that's Democrats just as much as it is Republicans.
I'll certainly say
won
this
in 2020.
Yeah.
What?
Bernie would have won in 2020 if it was all held at the very beginning.
Yeah, a lot of things would be different.
Yeah, certainly. What I think we can all agree that doing things the same way we've been doing them is not working out great, and just because we've always done things that way is not a reason to keep doing things that way.
And
Isn't that what it means to be progressive, though, is to want change and to work towards change.
But,
I
Jennifer,
think that's something very important there.
Jennifer, that has a clinical diagnosis, doing the same thing over and over again. Can you explain that?
Put me on. Well, I mean, sometimes it's great because it helps with predictability, right? Because if things continue to go the way that they are, they will continue to go the way that they are.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there we go. Jennifer's a certified behavior analyst.
Yeah.
So
analyze the behavior of us doing the same thing over and over again, not in getting the same
things
result.
change. That's why even when I look at my platform, I'm not just picking one or two things. I'm picking basically like pillars of being transparent. How are these different policies allowing people to have access? How are they allowing people to have opportunities? And so we have to be able to be disruptors and stand up, first call things out and then give some ideas and opportunities for change. Otherwise, we will just continue to do the same things the same way, which is why the state of Indiana is very much in the position that it is, where we have people who woke up yesterday that don't have access to food stamps. And many, many people do rely on them. The people that I work with, people with disabilities, a lot of them cannot just go out and get a job. But on top of that, we also have people that are out of jobs because of everything that's gone on this year. And then on top of that, with the government shutdown. So when you're doing things the same way, like having the choice to just shut down the government instead of working towards a resolution, we end up in this mess.
100%. We will spend a good bit of time talking about the shutdown and the effects from it, including SNAP, here in a little bit. But before we get to there, I just want to take a short detour, take time to look at this one, which, it's not a huge news story per se. It might be a little salacious and gossipy, but it was a big story this week. So after Turning Point USA's college tour visited IU last week, and right-wing conspiracy theorist Tucker Carlson headlined the show, filling in for late founder Charlie Kirk, they were at the University of Mississippi this week with Vice President J.D. Vance playing the Kirk role. But more than any statement Vance made, or the fact that the sitting Veep has nothing better to do than cosplay as a podcaster, the story coming out of the event was the hug he shared with Kirk's widow. With his wife Usha in the audience, the Hillbilly Elegy author and tech douche embraced Erica Kirk in a manner that looked more than just friendly. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the internet had so many jokes. Jackson, what was your favorite?
Well, if you look at her pants, it kind of looks like leather, which is J.D. Vance's favorite couch to have sex with. So I think she was kind of like peacocking a little bit to try to get his arousal. So I think that's how that played out.
You can't resist a good leather couch.
No.
J.D. can't say no. Simon.
Where to begin on this? I mean, Jackson's right about the couch, because however pissed off his wife is, she can't send him to go and, on the couch.
Very good. Jennifer, how about you? Are you above this shameful exercise that we're engaging in here? Or do you want to roll in?
I just think it's bullshit. I just think we have other things to talk about. But I mean, as I look at this hug, it's not appropriate. And it's especially not appropriate with him being married. And it's on both of them. It's not just how he's holding her, where her hands is, in his hair. But what I think about, and of course, what I looked up is his wife. Like that, not only that, but on top of this also goes into religion. The fact that she's Muslim, I believe is it Muslim?
She's
Hindu. Okay. Sorry. I knew, and I think, is this the same time where he had made a comment about his wife, hoping that she would come around to being a Christian?
That's the very rally.
Yes. And that's just, it's just ridiculous. I kind of wonder what's going to happen over the next several weeks, because if you look at pictures of his wife, she looks very displeased, even before this. I think both of these women are being used, as women often are. I don't get much into the Kirk story, but this is a young woman, and, Vance's wife too is all, thrown into this. This is not necessarily about politics. I'm also looking at this about being a woman and just being used in this whole political mess here as well. So,
yeah.
That's
Listen,
really
these folks are Christian nationalists, and they like to flaunt their religion in front of all of us. And that hug did not leave room for the Holy Ghost.
That didn't leave room for any, anything. So
the speculation,
again, it's just gossip to keep us.
Yeah. Right before he that hug, she was like, "Oh, no one's ever gonna be able to replace my husband."
Oh yeah.
But JD Vance has a lot of the same characteristics. And then 5 minutes later, JD Vance is dogging on his wife for not being Christian. And people are like, is he trying to calculate a 2028 run? But he knows he's getting a lot of hate from the Republicans because his wife isn't a white Christian. So he's like, oh, I'm going to try to pivot. I got 3 years now to try to angle a divorce and try to get with this oh, well, your husband was such a strong man, but I'll take care of you kind of thing. It's all really weird.
It's all political. I could see that too. Yeah. I definitely see that right here. You got, a couple right here that fits the Republican image a lot more, I think, than he does with his wife. And yeah, I would not be surprised. I mean, these are conversations that I definitely think people have, right? Let's switch.
These are cynical folks engaged in cynical behavior. Hey, speaking of cynical folks engaged in cynical behavior, what was the president of the United States up to this week? So Trump was in Asia. He landed in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia last Sunday for this year's ASEAN summit. And that's ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And I always want to pronounce it ASEAN. So he landed and immediately oversaw the signing of a truce between Thailand and Cambodia related to a brief 5-day skirmish they had in July, in which the two sides blamed each other for a short conflict where 48 people were killed and about 300,000 were displaced. Inevitably, Trump will brag about having ended yet another war, even though he just sort of, landed at the signing ceremony. Now, while in the area, on Monday, a U.S. Navy helicopter and fighter jet crashed in the South China Sea in separate incidents. The Navy has launched an investigation into the cause of both incidents. Meanwhile, Trump called the crashes very unusual and raised the possibility of a fuel problem. They think it might be bad fuel. We're going to find out, Trump said. Weird, bad, wouldn't all of the planes be using the same bad fuel? Why did only a couple of them crash? Who knows? Anyway, some analysts are suggesting sabotage or electronic warfare from China. But, Pete Hegseth's Department of War has seen a rash of lost craft in varied locations across the globe already this year. Tuesday, the president met new Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, where the two leaders signed a deal on rare earth minerals, as well as a document heralding a new golden age of U.S.-Japan relations. Wednesday, in South Korea, they showered Trump with the royal treatment, where the two nations engaged in advanced trade talks, addressing details of $350 billion in supposed Korean investment into the U.S. economy. after the negotiations and ceremonies that included the presentation of a gold medal and a crown to U.S. President Donald Trump. Although both sides said progress has been made, Trump said things were pretty much finalized. No agreement has been signed yet. Finally, on Thursday, Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping announced they have reached a trade deal, potentially easing tensions in the volatile U.S.-China relationship. The heads of state sealed a one-year trade truce on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Busan, South Korea, where the two leaders met face-to-face for the first time since 2019. While the agreement offered a reprieve to business unsettled by months of back-and-forth trade salvos, it did little to roll back existing barriers and left numerous points of contention between the sides unresolved. Under the deal, China agreed to defer its planned export controls on rare earth minerals, while the U.S. will drop a threatened 100% tariff on Chinese goods. Trump also said he would lower a 20% fentanyl-related tariff to 10% after Xi agreed to work very hard to stem flows of the synthetic opiate. Oh, where do we begin here? Are we back to Jackson? Jackson, what are your thoughts? What stands out from Trump's Asian trip this week? Obviously, a trade deal between the U.S. and China would be a BFD, as Joe Biden would say. Is this that?
Right. So he calls, he stopped 8 wars. I stopped 9 wars. I stopped 12 wars. He hasn't stopped any wars. And he also, that one time where he was like, I stopped a war between Albania and Azerbaijan. And it was Armenia. And he just makes stuff up, doesn't even get the countries right. And then on this Asian trip, a lot of these places just rolled out the red carpet for him, had military parades, giving him gifts. South Korea gave him a crown. Japanese prime minister gave him a golden golf ball and a golf club. So they're just really just appeasing him. It's South Park has it exactly right. To talk to Trump, you have to give him a gift, and then you're hey, Mr. President, can we get a deal going that kind of benefits us? And he only listens to what his ego is going towards. And if he wants to actually start ceasefires, then he should actually start with a ceasefire in Palestine and Israel. You work on Ukraine. Sudan has a bloody genocide and civil war ongoing right now. He hasn't mentioned that hardly at all. He's not focused on real solutions. He's not focused on actually helping the world's people out. He's only focused on going on parties, across the world and getting all these, these gifts, and people just bow down to him, worshiping him. So it's ridiculous and it's embarrassing that he's our world leader.
Simon, a couple weeks ago, we had this No Kings rally here in the United States. Now, I know they watch TV in South Korea. What are you doing, man? We're trying to do a thing here. This isn't helping.
That is true. But also remember from this week, Trump proved he's Taco King. He chickened out again. Because he threatened 100% tariffs on China and then he backed out again. So that's just true to form and more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, so listen, he's over there, he's receiving flattery, he's receiving gifts. I mean, whatever, it's fine. What's a little light corruption amongst friends? This is over there. Let me ask the question that this segment is named after. Who cares? Why should the average Hoosier care about this sort of thing?
Because it's all performative. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump's people are look, we need you to give us a crown. It needs to be gold. It needs to be this. Some of this stuff is even set up. It's ridiculous to even act like a king in our own country, which is what this country was coming away from when it first started, to being given crowns in other countries is just ridiculous. And it's so just pisses me off, right? That all of this is going on in front of all of our eyes, and just so many people, I don't harp on the Republicans that much, but they're just allowing this to happen because in all honesty, they're the ones that can can try to put a stop to some of this. And even talking about a third term, I mean, every single thing that Trump does right now, he pushes the envelope. Why? Because he can, because his party has allowed him to do that. And then that all loops us back around to redistricting. So why do we care? We care because this is just so very much affecting everything that's going on. You're out here
100%.
getting crowns of gold while the majority of our country is worried about how they're going to eat. And then a huge other part of that is worrying about how they're going to feed the people that need to be fed.
Yes, and that we will come to very shortly. But so listen, this trip to Asia, peaceful, diplomatic. We're solving all the wars. We're making the deals. But yeah,
I feel like Jackson. Do you work on a Trump voice too? I felt like I heard a little bit from you. No, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We have the best nukes. Nobody has better nukes than we do.
The dueling
Too much,
Trumps.
Simon.
Gotta play the accordion. Yes, but so again, all that peace talk. Yet this week, Trump tells the Pentagon, "Hey, maybe we should start testing nuclear weapons again."
That's the worst idea.
So Trump says, because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. The process will begin immediately. Now, it was not immediately clear what type of testing programs Trump was talking about in this announcement, which was made shortly before a meeting with Xi in South Korea. Nations with nuclear stockpiles, including the U.S., regularly conduct tests of their nuclear weapons delivery systems, but nearly all of them stopped testing nuclear weapons 30 years ago. It could be he was talking about Russian President Vladimir Putin announcing this week that the country had conducted successful tests of a new nuclear-powered cruise missile and an atomic-powered and nuclear-capable underwater drone. But according to the AP, Russia has not conducted a test of nuclear warheads since 1990. While speaking to reporters on Air Force One on his way back to Washington on Thursday, Trump seemed to conflate the tests of nuclear delivery systems with the tests of nuclear weapons themselves. Jackson, man, this seems like the kind of place where those distinctions are really important.
Yeah, so it's just scary times we live in. Also, the president not knowing the difference between the systems and the actually nuclear warheads that have that payload. It's scary. It's escalation. We live in 2025. Like, Cold War is over. We're on the edge of. He's bringing us into a new Cold War, and like the existence of all human life on this planet is detrimental on like 3 sociopaths who are just manic for power. So, I wish for the best. I hope the UN was actually, had a spine and had some teeth to try to have like de-escalation and like, get rid of these nuclear warheads so we can like do tit for tat. Like, you remove 1,000, we'll remove 1,000. But no, international law is a joke and it's all made up. And we're just sitting here hoping for the best.
Jennifer, should we be afraid?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we're dealing with, government that just does whatever it wants. And when I first heard this story, yep, that's exactly kind of what went into my brain is we definitely should be afraid. But he also uses a lot of things, for talk and strategery from my Bushism.
Hey, there's Simon. Simon's back. You hear us okay, Simon? I'm going to take that as a no. Let us go ahead and move on while we figure out Simon's audio and video there, and we're going to talk about this one. And Jackson, I really want to get your impressions of this story because Pete Hegseth's Pentagon has ordered the National Guard to establish quick reaction forces for civil unrest. This story coming from the Wall Street Journal. The Pentagon has ordered the National Guard to create, quote, quick reaction forces in every state and territory by January that are trained and equipped to respond to riots and civil unrest within the U.S., according to Internal Defense Department memos. The riot control units are a major shift for the Pentagon, underscoring the Trump administration's push to directly involve The military in responding to protests and other domestic missions that have been off limits except in emergencies. As many as 500 soldiers in each state or territory National Guard organization will be assigned to deploy in the U.S. on short notice and receive non-lethal training in crowd control, handling of detainees, and use of batons, stun guns, and body shields. This is according to Pentagon directives. Most states' National Guard organizations have existing quick reaction forces that have historically been used for domestic disaster relief, where their mission would include area security and reestablishing essential services, not on domestic law enforcement or crowd control. Now, Jackson, you are a member of the Indiana National Guard, yes?
Yes, I am.
Let me get your thoughts.
So yeah, and this actually affects people obviously very close to me. I've had people very near me that are designated to be on that QRF force, the quick reaction force. And this is not what we signed up to do. We signed up to protect the people and the Constitution of this country from threats both foreign and domestic. Right now, they're trying to make it to where the National Guard is deployed to protest. By and large, all the protests that have been happening, nearly all of them have been overwhelmingly peaceful, with people in costumes and inflatable costumes and grandmas just holding up signs. So I think what this is doing is gearing up towards their escalating fascism, because they expect protests. This is not what we're seeing right now, where they kind of just let us be by and large. Here in Indiana, No King's protest was a massive success. I think they're going to do something, have something on the docket that is especially tremendous, and they expect nationwide backlash. But they want to suppress freedom of speech. It goes in line with what they're doing to our schools, the books, and they don't want us protesting. They don't want us speaking out against dear leader. And they say he's not a king, but then he's organizing henchmen to silence any dissent to his rule. So during a time when the National Guard can be deployed to give food benefits to people, handing out donation, all these supplies to the people in need, handing out winter clothes. That's something I joined the National Guard for, is to actually help my community. But right now they're trying to break away. To my members who are also in the military, in the National Guard, military, everyone, do not follow any illegal orders. Now, that's not a hot take. You are bound by law, by your oath, not to follow any illegal orders. If you are ordered to go crack down on a peaceful protester who has every right to the freedom of speech, the First Amendment, you by law are not allowed to do that. Just because someone told you to, that doesn't give you legality, and legality does not equal morality either. So your orders are not moral, don't follow them. It's if we got to stand up for what we actually signed swore to this country. Do not obey fascist illegal orders. That's what I have to say about that.
Simon, are you back with us?
I think so. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Very good. So I wanted to ask you, this to me seems like this fits in with all the redistricting stuff, and it's part of an effort to steal the 2026 election. They're already setting up for it. They may lose the popular vote in the House by millions next year, and if they get their way with all of the gerrymandering, we'll still maintain control of the House. I don't know, man. That might get people into the streets to protest. There may be techniques beyond just the gerrymandering they use to suppress the vote in next year. Maybe the Guard is for that. Am I a wild-eyed conspiracy theorist thinking these things?
Sure, why not? So the thing about the gerrymandering, Indiana's was gerrymandered in 2010. It was gerrymandered in 2020, and even Princeton University said that the new Republican maps were perfect, which when you look at them, they're not. You have, and then I think the other thing that's important about the whole idea of redistricting, everybody's looking at it, it's just picking up 2 extra seats. It's not.
2 here, 2 there, 2 here, 2 there.
Well, and it's splitting up communities.
Well, but it's okay. So if you paid attention to Texas redistricting, 28 of their districts were gerrymandered to become at least 80% white. And so what they're doing is they're disenfranchising black and brown voices.
Of course.
And this round of redistricting is the electoral version of ethnic cleansing when you look at it. And then the maps that we've seen that have come out of nowhere, but have been proposed, we'll use that in inverted commas because it's not official yet. They've divided up Indianapolis into multiple districts. They've divided up Gary into multiple districts, and it's having exactly the same effect that it did in Texas. Now, if you want to go one step further with the redistricting, there is a possibility to pick up 11 seats, 12 seats, because at the same time that this is happening, the Commission for the Indiana-Illinois border is meeting. That they've just started to meet. The Indiana people have been meeting without the Illinois people, but you've got multiple counties in Illinois that want to secede and become part of Indiana. Historically, it all used to be part of the Indiana Territory when you go back to like the 1800s anyway. So there is that from a historical perspective, but these are heavy Republican districts or counties that want to stay with a Republican supermajority. So nobody's paying attention to the redistricting on the border. Now, Illinois has to vote on it, Indiana has to vote on it, but there is the potential by 2026 to actually have more than 9 districts, and they all be Republican. You know, add the racial gerrymandering, electoral ethnic cleansing is what I call it, and you have a white Republican supermajority that is not accountable to anybody. So I was part of the sort of the team background that tried to stop the 2020 maps. And that went to court, and basically the whole argument in court was basically the map's not competitive. They're not representing Republicans, they're not representing Democrats. And the Republicans were like, well, they don't listen to us either because they've got a supermajority. They listen to the money and the lobbyists. So that lawsuit was thrown out on the basis of there is no mandate or requirement for the districts to be competitive.
And we'll come back to the gerrymandering sign. We're going to spend a lot of time there, but like for right now, Jennifer, I want to ask. I mean, we're talking about this quick reaction National Guard force. You know, they are there to keep the people in mind after this steal goes through. Yes, is that what this is about?
Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, exactly. He's setting the troops up to be there. To scare people, one, and then to be reactive if they, you know, need to be or feel that they need to be. It's just, I mean, I like history, so I know a lot of us in politics do. So we see a lot of these things just coming back around from what you hate, the Nazis, right? Just these.
Well, and then of course they got a lot of their ideas from us in the first place, and we have to keep that in perspective too. That the fascism never really existed in this vacuum. Let's talk about the government shutdown. Now, this has been ongoing. You know, it's funny we talk about the segment. You know, our U.S. and World segment here on Who's Left. It's called Who Cares, because we want to tie these national stories back to Indiana, and this shutdown and everything that goes along with it really is getting intimately into Hoosiers' lives at this point. So this week, as the shutdown nears becoming the longest in U.S. history, the Guardian's reporting that the U.S. is set to lose between $7 and $14 billion as a result of the ongoing shutdown, according to the Congressional Budget Office. On Wednesday, The nonpartisan federal agency released its estimates in a new report to the House Budget Committee as the government shutdown reaches 4 weeks. This shutdown will also reduce the U.S. GDP by 1 to 2 percentage points in the fourth quarter of 2025. The word you're looking for there is recession. Republicans Now, one way to end this shutdown, according to President Donald Trump, is for Republicans in the Senate to end the filibuster. But GOP leaders quickly pushed back on that. They thought they were, on track to reopen the agencies as soon as next week. Then Trump threw this complication into the mix overnight on Thursday when he revived calls for Republicans to invoke the nuclear option and eliminate the 60-vote threshold for passing most legislation. Without it, Republican senators could reopen the government on their own. But many GOP senators have vocally defended the filibuster, including Senate Majority Leader John Thune, calling the 60-vote rule a fundamental feature of the Senate and one that works to conservatives' benefit in the long run. Jackson, let me just ask you a quick question. Now you're running for the House. The Senate's not quite in your sights yet. What do you think of the filibuster? Now, the Democrats have been afraid to use it when we've had the Senate to do big necessary things, maybe hamstringing ourselves. Is this the Republicans showing restraint here, or are they up to something else?
I think that the filibuster is like the Democrats have been largely weak on this point. Like we actually had a filibuster-proof Senate and House under Obama, and then what did we get? We got the ACA. It comes full circle because we could have had Medicare for all for the last 20 almost 20 years now, but we've squashed that chance, and now the fascists are in power, and they're just gonna bend our arm however they can. So I think that when Democrats get in power, we just get how they're running through walls, breaking the Constitution, doing everything they can to implement their fascist agenda. I think, Beto O'Rourke said this when he was in Indiana. When we get in power, we got to get in that car we stole it and deliver for the people. Right now we have a rogue Supreme Court that took away women's right to control their own bodies. The Supreme Court is probably going to hear about, gay marriage soon again. And, I think when Democrats get in power, we got to do anything we can to implement human rights and then close the gate right behind us. I'd say, human rights are off the table. We should be fighting for gay marriage, interracial marriage, women's rights, healthcare, education, all these things. And, however we can do that, that's how we should do that. It's by the end of the day, it's the policy that matters. And, the Republicans are trying to destroy the government. This whole shutdown is because the Republicans want to give even larger tax write-offs to the top 1% in this nation. We have the largest redistribution of wealth from us working people to the top 1% in American history. And all the Democrats are asking for, you guys can have that same bill, but save the ACA credits. Just give us health care. Just keep a little bit of health care for us at home, and that you guys get whatever you want. And the Republicans are willing to shut down the government and making tens of thousands of people starve. And, just having a hostage that they're willing to shoot. So it's nonsense. It's authoritarian. We say this word a lot. It's fascist. These people are insane. The Republican Party is the largest, it's the most dangerous organization on the planet. They're destroying the planet. This planet isn't simply just dying. It's getting murdered by people like the people in the Senate and the House right now, with fossil fuels, with genocide, war. They're starving, all these things. We got to fight tooth and nail, and that's why this fight is so important.
100%. So, and Thune is right when he says that the filibuster benefits conservatives. It has always been a minoritarian institution. The Senate is already a minoritarian institution. The filibuster makes it even more so. It is always, since the beginning of this country, since our Constitution was written, it was meant to be a check on the power of the people. So one of the major effects of this shutdown is that funding for SNAP, food stamps, food assistance for people was due to run out yesterday, November 1st. So The U.S. Department of Agriculture planned to freeze payments to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program starting November 1st because it said it could no longer keep funding it due to the shutdown. The program serves about 1 in 8 Americans and is a major piece of the nation's social safety net. It costs about $8 billion per month nationally. States, food banks, and SNAP recipients have been bracing for an abrupt shift in how low-income people can get groceries. Several states scrambled to help, but despite the best efforts of states, local governments, and food charities, it won't be enough to cover what the federal government does under SNAP. Even states with fat budget surpluses couldn't cover the SNAP tab much beyond November. The bill for that totaled about $100 billion in 2024. Now, Democratic state attorneys general or governors from 25 states and D.C. challenged the plan to pause the program, contending that the administration has a legal obligation to keep it running in their jurisdictions. The administration said it wasn't allowed to use a contingency fund of about $5 billion for the program, which reversed a USDA plan from before the shutdown that said money would be tapped to keep SNAP running. The Democratic officials said not only could that money be used, but that it must be. They also said a separate fund with about $23 billion is available for the cause. Now, on Friday, 2 federal judges ruled nearly simultaneously that the Trump administration must continue to pay for SNAP, the nation's biggest food aid program, using emergency reserve funds during the shutdown. These judges in Massachusetts and Rhode Island gave the administration leeway on whether to fund the program partially or in full for November. That also brings uncertainty about how things will unfold and will delay payments for many beneficiaries whose cards would normally be recharged early in the month. So, Jennifer, now I know you work with a lot of people in the disability community. I mean, okay, this ruling on Friday, great. Sounds like maybe this thing has been stayed off, but there will be delays, right? People are hungry now. And furthermore, this thing leaves leeway to the Trump administration, which they have shown, well, they will always take a mile when given an inch. Now, yeah. What are your thoughts? How are you seeing this affect people?
It's kind of a catch-22. First of all, I'm so appreciative that we do live in a wonderful country where people very much care and come together to support others. I can also see the Trump administration being like, oh, well, here we are. We can sustain people. We don't need all this government money. You, the people, are the ones that need to be doing this. I can see them trying to use that down the road, like this kind of like a trial period. Like, how are we going to do when we're not giving people the food and the supports that they need? So that is just kind of my brain theory working there. However, there are SNAP benefits just don't go to people that are maybe temporarily unable to work. There are a lot of people in those situations, but there are a lot of people that are permanently disabled, whether that has happened over the course of their life or they were born that way, that very much rely 100% on SNAP. And a lot of those people also have maybe schedules to where they only have somebody that can come take them one day, a certain day each week, maybe Monday to go get their food. So now what are they going to do? They're not able to do that. I guess they'll be going to food pantries instead, this week. But it definitely can take some time to get things figured out. But this is really, to me, this is a contract with the American people. It's our social support system, and food sustains everything that we do. It affects every aspect, being able to have nutrition affects us so very much. So it is just definitely a disgrace and really never have been an option in the first place.
Yeah. Simon, like Jennifer hinted at this, I think. She's like, well, they just want to get away with this stuff altogether. Like, look at how the people come together. They don't need this SNAP. It's the Christian Nationalist Project wants the social safety net to go through churches, correct? Is this part of their plan to, build Christendom in America?
Well, historically, churches have never been able to provide a safety net to the scale that covers the entire population. The closest they've come to is building hospitals, and they did that primarily the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. So, like IU Health is actually half Methodist hospital. There's the board for IU Health comes from the university and the Methodist Church.
And then you've got the Catholic charities all over. I mean, the Catholic hospitals, obviously, but then all of them. Yeah.
There's no way that, I mean, there's enough churches out there to support the entire population, but the reality is they do not have the resources to provide a safety net. And so it's incumbent on those in power to provide that. Because, I mean, Thomas Horrocks had a great quote, which was, charity can't fix bad policy. Mm-hmm. And so the whole idea of suddenly handing it off to a 501c3 charity, where it's great theoretically, but in practice, it's impossible to hold the whole population. And part of the other reason is once you get deep into fundamental evangelicalism and Christian nationalism, you suddenly get to the point where people turn around and go, well, you just don't deserve it. You don't work hard enough. And rather than extending grace like the church is supposed to, like Christianity is supposed to extend grace to everybody, they just don't do that. Because, you know, there's people not like me, therefore I'm the blessed one, and they're not. And I mean, it's pretty horrible when you kind of dig down deep into it.
Who would Jesus deny food access and healthcare to?
It really is. Well, yeah. So listen, I mean, we're talking about they want smaller congregations and groups to handle these things. It's dividing artificial fences around us in a way similar to gerrymandering. You know, right? It makes you go kiss a ring somewhere. Like you've got to go through this gate, through this gatekeeper to get the aid that you really deserve. But look, Jackson, I mean, even with SNAP, with us having to like essentially beg to have this thing put back, we are literally begging for scraps at this point. Like, yes, we need to put SNAP back. We need to strengthen it. We need to make it greater. But shouldn't we really be imagining a system where like enough food to eat is a basic human right?
Of course. Yeah, obviously we need a universal SNAP program, universal basic income, universal housing. And, you know, like right now during a time, like we don't have SNAP, but they can send $40 billion to Argentina, $38 billion to Israel. They're tearing down the People's House, the East Wing, it all for a huge, massive ballroom. Oh, they're basically saying, let them eat cake. You know, they're living like pre-revolutionary France. And I say it's only a matter of time until the people whose Medicaid and food stamps they cut off start sharpening their guillotines. You know, if we say no kings. We live in a time of like massive wealth inequality. And, you know, they're going to be dancing on us while people starve. This affects real people. Like real human beings will go without food. Real children will go without food because these tyrants all just want to give everything they're greed addicts to wealth. Except, you know, it's like much like a drug addiction. You know, drug addiction harms you and around you. This level of addiction to greed and money, it harms the whole nation. It harms the whole planet. And they're going to kill us all if we don't start organizing and doing something about it.
So the reason that Democrats are withholding their votes to reopen the government is ostensibly to protect Obamacare subsidies. And we're seeing this week, as we come into the 1st of November, open enrollment begins for some of these plans. And we're seeing what they're going to cost without the subsidies, and it ain't pretty. So Millions across the country are discovering just how much their plans will cost as enrollment for Affordable Care Act insurance plans began on November 1st. Enrollment lasts through January 15th. A recent analysis from Kaiser Family Foundation found that if the enhanced premium tax credits expire, as they are currently set to do on December 31st, ACA enrollees will see their monthly premiums more than doubling, rising by roughly 114% on average. An estimated 22 million out of 24 million ACA Marketplace enrollees are currently receiving a tax credit to lower their monthly premiums. Even if those credits are extended, KFF found that the amount insurers charge for ACA premiums will still rise by an average of 26% in 2026. And I want to bring Simon back into this now because it turns out the Indiana angle for this story very much involves you. Now, the Indy Star had an article the other day featuring your wife, and I will quote from it. On November 1st, Michelle Higgs plans to check the Affordable Care Act health insurance marketplace portal and see how much more she will pay next year if Congress fails to extend enhanced subsidies. She estimates that her current plan, which also covers her husband, hey, that's you, and 2 young children, would increase by more than $2,000 per month without subsidies. But that's before factoring in insurance companies' annual premium hike, which is the steepest nationally since 2018. Quote. Sorry, this is not a quote. Never mind. Marketplace enrollees are not the only group who stand to suffer from expired subsidies. Rural hospitals, as well, already operating on thin margins, would likely have to provide more free emergency care as thousands of Hoosiers lose health insurance. So we have the personal angle, as you and your family will illustrate for us here shortly, Simon, and also the institutional angle, as lack of these subsidies will drive rural hospitals out of business. So, Simon, I'm going to turn the floor over to you here for a moment. Elaborate on what Michelle was saying there, if you will, please.
Oh, where to start? Well, if she's checked, she hasn't told me the results. But basically, from previous years, we've been in situations where we get the subsidy, and then when you file your taxes, if you've earned too much money, then all of a sudden it's like they take the subsidy away by putting on extra taxes for you. So we have experienced premiums as high as $2,800 a month, which is which to me is insane. I mean, and when you do the math, that's $33,600 a year that's been extracted before you can even see a doctor. And remember, you've got $12,000 of deductibles at that point before the insurance will kick in at 80%. And so you're still going to end up paying 20% of the inflated hospital prices. So it really can be, I mean, you're looking at some families that have medical situations, just to see the doctor could be $100,000 a year. And if you can't cover that, then you're just not going to go and do it. So that's what the unsubsidized plans look like. And that particular plan that we were on was Joe Biden's silver, all singing, all dancing one that everybody recommended. And that's why the insurance companies recommended it, because it was just it's a grift. And Jackson's absolutely right. We do need Medicare for all. Nobody should have to pay to see a doctor, and there should be no shareholders between the doctor-patient relationship that extract wealth. None of that is acceptable. So, that's another reason for guillotines, which has happened in other countries. And then I've given a couple of speeches about this at some of the Universal Health Town Halls. And then one of the things I discovered was back when Saddam Hussein, his administration fell, and after we invaded Iraq, the Republicans decided, oh, we'll help you rewrite the Iraqi constitution. Well, the Iraqi constitution now has healthcare as a human right. So what I tell people is the Republicans gave Iraqis healthcare as a human right, but you still can't have it. You know, why is that?
Wow. Jackson, why is that?
It's ridiculous. Well, here in America, we have a for-profit health insurance system. And I don't need to tell you guys, but corporate lobbyists buy out all of our politicians. And there's a system that's not working for us working class people. It's being, it's bought up. All of our, like large health insurance CEOs, like they're committing terrorism on the working class of this country. More than 70,000 Americans die every year due to lack of health insurance. I know because I've seen many of these people on the ambulance. People who like deny further care because they didn't want to have a medical debt to their family. So I've literally taken people from the hospital back to their homes to die because they didn't want to pay the medical bill or have put that bill on their family. So, that's something and that's just all across the country. Working class people are struggling to get by. All the while, these CEOs, all these big health insurance companies are just living like kings. They're addicted to greed, they're addicted to wealth, and it's never enough for these people. That's why we need strict and robust campaign finance reform to have public funding of our elections, ban corporate lobbyists, and ban super PACs so we can actually have a democracy and not a corrupt oligarchy.
Jennifer, last word goes to you on this topic. I mean, like, it's a silly system we have. Again, just like the SNAP, just like these subsidies, we're fighting over scraps. We have all these artificial barriers set up. They're artificial checkpoints at which some capitalist fuck takes their cut. Am I wrong? Oh, sorry, Jennifer. Hold on. We lost your audio there for a second.
Sorry about that. No, you're completely right. And right now we're just talking about the marketplace. We're not even talking about people that are getting insurance through their jobs. And some of these people are coming away making less money or will be next year. I think I read an article on teachers. It might have been in Westfield or Noblesville. I can't quite recall. But they were talking about how they're not getting any raises. And then on top of that, I think their health insurance is going up 16%. So people are very much, even if you're not getting in the marketplace, a lot of people are going to be walking away next year with less money on top of all the high prices that we're paying for things. So yes, it is very much about greed and not wanting the rest of us to be healthy. And there's not only do people not use their insurance a lot of times, like Jackson's talking about, a lot of people choose not to even get insurance because they can't afford it.
Or they're stuck in a dead-end job because their job, like they hate their job, but they have good health care there. So they can't get a job that like may pay better, but they lose their health insurance, or a job they just prefer to do, but they lose their health insurance. I don't think that this is making America healthy again by making people so, reliant on this healthcare, this for-profit and immoral healthcare system.
Yeah. And it is. And it just shows how little value the actual working class have to the administration.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've seen how some of these federal policies are affecting Hoosiers in our everyday lives. Let us, turn the corner here and drill down, focus on Indiana's story. We'll start with the headlines.
Can I throw something in before we do that?
Absolutely.
So back to the shutdown. There's a couple of things that people need to know about it. We have a member of Congress, I think from Arizona, that hasn't been sworn in, and is being sworn in.
Still?
So basically, they are the deciding vote in order to release the Epstein files. So once the Epstein files are fully released, then we've already seen what's happened over in the UK with Prince Andrew not being a prince anymore, being kicked out of his royal digs. All that opens up a whole can of worms over here as well for some very significant people. So what we're looking at is the possibility that the shutdown is not going to end. And if that is the case, we're in the middle of a soft coup.
It certainly appears that, and look, the Republicans have talked about destroying the federal government for a long time. This essentially accomplishes that goal. Gee, thanks for the bummer, Simon. Let's turn around and focus this thing on Indiana and go around the court. Now, let's look at our top our other headlines this week before we dig into some of our deeper stories. So on Monday, the Indiana Department of Health announced the state's first flu-related death of the 2025-26 flu season. Also, Circle City Broadcasting, already owners of Wish TV Channel 8 and My Indy Y Channel 23 out of Indianapolis, announced on Tuesday that it has entered into a definitive agreement to acquire the ABC affiliate Channel 6 WRTV from the EW Scripps Company for $83 million. Also in Indianapolis, the owner of Truth Treatment Centers, a mental health and addiction recovery provider, has been arrested and charged with 43 counts of Medicaid fraud and 1 count of theft. The Indiana Court of Appeals, heard arguments on Tuesday in a wrongful death case that could shape how far the Indiana-headquartered NCAA's responsibility extends to former college athletes who later developed degenerative brain disease. Also this week, this one was brought to my attention, and just a quick announcement here because I've got it here. So, the BMV earlier this year proposed new rules that would prohibit transgender and gender-expansive people from obtaining ID cards that reflect who they are. Hoosiers spoke out clearly with thousands of emails and hours of public testimony. In response to this clear opposition, the BMV quietly withdrew the rule without providing any public record of that testimony. Not satisfied with a loud and clear no from Hoosiers, they've reintroduced the exact same harmful language for yet another round of public comment. That happened this week. Make your opposition known at bit.ly, that's bit.ly/BMV testimony. Comments are open until November 14th. Flood that office with hell no's from across the state. I move on. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita this week is also appealing a judge's decision to dismiss his office's lawsuit, alleging the St. Joseph County Sheriff, that's South Bend, has refused to honor immigration detainer requests. Republican Air Force veteran Jennifer Ruth Green announced on Monday that she will again run for Indiana's 1st congressional district against incumbent Frank Mervan. She came kind of close a few years ago, at least closer than anyone's come to beating a Democrat in the 1st for a long time. Of course, Green's got baggage, having resigned as public safety secretary in September after complaints of ghost employment and misuse of state property. So we also heard this week that the National FFA, formerly known as Future Farmers of America, will maintain their yearly expo in Indianapolis through at least 2040. The Indiana Daily Students, that's the IU student newspaper, is back on in print this year after the university has backtracked on its decision to cut future print editions. And finally, Mike Braun appointed a new IEDC president this week. In that news conference, he also announced an intention to rebrand Indiana's signage across the state to Crossroads of America from whatever it is that Eric Holcomb put in place these last couple years. So I will open it up to each of you. What grabs your attention out of those headlines? Whose turn is it? Jackson.
Sure. So yeah, the media conglomerates buying more. It reminds me of like on the more national sense of like Paramount merging like PBS and all these things, or some other CBS, what it was. Yeah, all of our media is owned by like 3 or 4 companies. Like it's really an echo chamber, and you've seen those clips of like hundreds of news shows all saying the exact same lines. So that's we need more public funding for news sources, for like things like PBS and all that. So and like the BMV going against trans people. disastrous. Fascist filth is what they're doing. It's authoritarian. We need to do what Scott said. Make those phone calls ring, send them emails, send them letters, do what you can to stand up for human rights. And, first district going against Frank Mervan. I may have policy disagreements with Frank Mervan, but much rather prefer him than whatever fascist filth the Republican Party has trying to remove him out of office. And yet, yeah, Crossroads of America. Yeah, I don't know why Eric Holcomb changed that.
I don't either. Like, that's
well,
what it
Jennifer,
is.
listen. Okay, so as much as we all like the Crossroads of America branding or whatever, but they did change it. I mean, is it worth it to spend a bunch of money going back and change it out? Like, I don't think they held on to the signs. They probably recycled them. Now we got to print new ones. We're looking at millions and millions and millions of state dollars when we're already in a pinch. What else catches your eye there?
The B&B one. It's just not necessary. It's just a waste of resources and time and money, and at a time when that's not even really what Hoosiers are talking about, right? That's probably one of the least things that most people are talking about anyways, except for the people that it really does affect. And that just, again, goes back to the administration and the people that they don't value and how they continue to just nail it into people, whether you're LGBTQ+, whether you're Black or brown, whether you're somebody with a disability like me. It's like, how much more can we just take away from you and grind into you? So that one, although it's not a big one for me, it just kind of just goes to all the performative crap that's going on. Did we bring up the childcare?
Oh, we'll get to that. It's
okay,
down in the so, but hey, there was another thing I noticed this week though. This coming week, November 6th, world premiere of Netflix Stranger Things, season 5, set in the imaginary Hawkins, Indiana. And say, Simon, didn't your wife have a campaign ad last year that was themed around Stranger Thing and was nominated for a 2025 Reed Award?
Yeah, I made that ad.
I figured you did.
So, if anybody, we'll have to figure out a way for people to get a link to it, but it essentially sets the State House up as the upside down in Stranger Things, and it basically puts the idea that we can actually right that wrong and turn the State House the right way up with the right people and the right policies.
And hey, I'll tell you what, I'll put that in the show notes, which you will get emailed to you after every one of these if you subscribe at HoosLeft.us. Thanks for setting me up for the pitch there, Simon. Let's move into our stories of the week here in Indiana. Now, so Monday, Mike Braun, to the surprise of no one after much pantomiming like he's an independent voice, called a special session to take up congressional redistricting, as we've seen from in other states. Obviously, a politically charged move that follows months of mounting pressure from national Republicans to redraw Indiana's map ahead of the 2026 midterms. So, Braun's order set the session for Monday, tomorrow, November 3rd, and said it will focus primarily on revising the state's congressional boundaries, lines that were only drawn 5 years ago, well, less than 5 years ago in 2021, following the U.S. Census. Now, turns out, lawmakers will not convene Monday for an upcoming session because, as Todd Houston said on Wednesday, this is what House Speaker Todd Houston said on Wednesday, instead signaling that the Republican-led General Assembly plans to meet later within the 40-day window allotted by state law. Well, why the delay? Turns out they still don't have the votes. There are enough independent-minded Republicans in the legislature, at least for now, to keep this thing from going through. So the special session apparently will also not just focus on the redistricting, but will take up it will take up a tax update. So lawmakers could use the session not only to draw the maps, but head off what tax experts call impending chaos for tax experts and businesses. It has to do with the thing in the One Big Beautiful Bill, which made significant revisions to the federal Internal Revenue Code. Indiana currently conforms to the federal tax code as it existed on January 1st, 2023, meaning the recent federal changes aren't automatically reflected in state law. So, not just redistricting, there is other stuff going on. But listen, yes, that is the primary focus of this special session, is to steal congressional seats from, yes, primarily voters of color. Yes, Jackson?
Yes, obviously. And, we've been fighting back as hard as we can on this, like telling people to like call your state senator, send them letters, protest. Last Monday, me and a few others of my team went to Indy to join the protest outside of the rooftop rooftop bar that they were at. All like the governor, even like Congressman Shreves was there, and like all of our Republican state senators went there, and I was like face to face with many of them, like telling them like, don't redistrict, stand on the side of democracy, stand with your people, join us in protecting democracy. And the remarks that we got, some of them were like, oh yeah, I'll never do it. Great. We had like one or two of them say that, but then there was other ones like mocking us, like so abhorrently against democracy. Like they were doing the crying face at us, they were like blowing us kisses. It's ridiculous. But then the following day, next Tuesday, Mike Braun came here to Muncie. So right outside City Hall, they had like a little tent, and our mayor, Republican mayor, was out there giving him like a speech and whatnot. And we were just blasting. They heard the message. We do not want redistricting. I was like right next to him, just blasting a megaphone saying, we do not want to redistrict. We want fair maps, fair representation. Indiana votes 40% Democrat, and we only have like 22% of the congressional representation. So we already have gerrymandered maps. It's already skewed that way. Do not shut us out. And this hurts Republicans as well, because if the Republican politicians know, like, hey, as long as I win the primary, they don't got to listen to you. Like a lot of Republicans want to release the Epstein files, actually, and they're just not, they don't have to listen. They think they're invincible. So we got to hold these politicians accountable, remind them that they work for us. And, they know they think they have to redistrict because they know what they're doing is unpopular. They can't cut, 17 million people off their Medicaid and 21 million families across this country's access to food stamps and all these foreign wars like Venezuela and all that, and expect to win in big numbers, come the next midterm election. So, they're trying to redistrict. And if they do go through with this, nationally, Democrats will have to win by the popular vote by 5 percentage points because they hold more state legislators. So it's just very undemocratic, and we got to do everything we can to fight back.
Jennifer, so we got this going on in Indiana. We talked about up at the top of the show how there's Texas, Missouri, California, Virginia. It's everywhere, all over the country. They're doing these things. The gerrymandering on steroids really began with the 2010 cycle. There's a great book called Rat Fucked by David Daley, which I just like to mention because it's called Rat Fucked. But he talks about the 2010 cycle and how important that was in the gerrymandering. Everything that's going on now is in response to that. So have we finally kind of reached the point where this thing is almost comical? Like there's no way else for either place to go with it. Like Democrats had legislation proposed to eliminate gerrymandering everywhere. Is the absurdity of it all finally coming into focus that you think maybe we can end this dumb practice once and for all everywhere?
I doubt it. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do in government that we still keep that are counterproductive, and we all complain about it. But that goes back to, I think we were talking about earlier, we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So in a perfect world, yes, it would be great if we got rid of it and we just were able to vote by the, popular vote. But that's just not the reality of what we're dealing with. And I know that there's like some proposed maps out there, even though people say there's not, we don't really know which one they're looking at. But I was looking at it before I came on here, and it completely splits up if it goes with it, it splits up some important parts where I'm at. It may not change some things as intended, but
that, yeah, you're right. That one gets less. What do you call it? Less publicity. That they're looking at dividing up. What is it, like splitting like Floyd County?
Yeah. So like Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're down where I'm at. I'm just north of Louisville. So we have River Ridge with the Ohio River. We have just this huge project with River Ridge, which I tell people is kind of similar if you're in the Indy area to Plainfield. I used to live out there when there was nothing, and now it's just huge. And this is such an important piece for this area. Even though, we have two different legislators there from the House. They do work together. They're different parties, but they do work together. But even within our district, the 9th district, which would be changed, it is just such an important piece for Southern Indiana, and a lot is going on it. So I would be interested in how the legislation really does look at that split in terms of like economic value and being able to work together, no matter, if you're Democrat or Republican. But I guess the point to your question is, I don't think it's likely going to change as far as the act of redistricting. And again, we did it not too long ago in Indiana already.
It was right, and it was bad then, and it was bad 10 years ago. And Simon, let me ask you, like, are you in Bray's district or adjacent to it?
In whose district?
Rod Bray, the Senate majority leader.
No, we're not. We're in Shelley Yoder's Senate district, but we are we're in Peggy Mayfield's district for the House, which is the where Michelle's running. I think something that should be noted is the logistics of all of this, because we're seeing some similar patterns emerge. The original date for Monday, November 3rd, to start the special session, could still be on. Because what they've been doing is they've been announcing dates, and then the Democrat Party has been parroting these Republican talking points of what the days are. So now the Democrat Party is saying, "Oh, no need to worry until November the 19th, the day after Org Day," which is when they are supposed to start the session and swear in all the new members. Matt Pierce had a town hall a couple of days ago, and he shared something which I think people need to be aware of, is the fact that for the gerrymandering, the redistricting, there are technically it's supposed to be put in as a bill. They're supposed to put it through committee. So that's like Monday they put the bill in, Tuesday it goes into committee, Wednesday they vote on it. Well, there is a way to bypass committee. And so what they can do is they can take a vote in the morning on, let's say Monday, to drop the rules for committee and avoid going through committee and just take the vote in the afternoon. Now, they don't know if they have the votes yet, or if they do, that nobody's letting anybody know about it. So by having the vote to drop the committee process, they will know whether they have enough votes to actually vote on it in the afternoon. And so this is all theory. Theoretically, they can have it all done and dusted before they go home on Monday. And everybody's looking the other way going, "Oh, well, we're happy at brunch and we'll show up on the 19th. So there's a group of us that are going to be going up to the State House tomorrow. It is tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah. On Monday the 3rd, just to make sure they don't sneakily start this without us.
I might be joining you there.
Let me ask you a quick, like one word take even. Is this thing going to get jammed through, Jackson?
I think so, yes.
Jennifer?
What was the question?
They're going to do this thing whether we want them to or not, aren't they?
I don't know. I know you made mention earlier about, some maybe well-intended Republicans or whatever, those ones that are not willing to sign on with the other Republicans. It's not about that. It's about them keeping their jobs as it is. That's why some of them are opposing it. But I mean,
Simon, it's all sorry, Jennifer. I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. I'm good. Go ahead, Simon.
Simon, it's all kayfabe, isn't it? They know they have the votes. They're just trying to figure out who needs to publicly oppose this thing to maintain their seat next week. But
Well,
man, they're going to find the magic number, aren't they?
I'm going to answer with a single word, maybe, and I'll explain that. Because we've been in contact with Rod Bray as he's in Michelle's district, Morgan County. And he has been the holdout, and as the leader of the Senate, he's been the one that Trump's been targeting. Now the thing is, if these guys aren't going to go up for re-election, then they can hold out. If they are going up for re-election, then Trump has threatened to primary any of them that essentially are holdouts. So we don't have exact numbers because the majority of them aren't telling us. It could go. I'm just going to say it could go either way, and if it does go the way where they don't redistrict because people have or the legislators vote against it, I think we're actually in good standing. Otherwise, it's like we've got to build Indiana up again from scratch.
And in the grand scheme of things, Indiana's 1 or 2 seats that they might steal here aren't going to begin to, offset or make a dent in the stuff they've done elsewhere in the country. Let us move on and talk about this guy. Always something with old Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith. Every week, a different scandal with this clown. So, this week, a grand jury in Marion County is investigating allegations of ghost employment and other wrongdoings in Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith's office. Wonder if he learned those techniques from Jennifer Ruth Green. The world may never know. So a report filed by the Marion County Grand Jury on October 3rd said it met on August 18th and September 30th for an investigation into the distribution of an intimate image and ghost employment in the office of the Indiana Lieutenant Governor. It is unclear what the investigation into the ghost employment pertains to, but we've talked about the AI deepfake of State Rep Craig Haggard's wife in this space previously. Also this week, while that's going on, Micah Beckwith has been spending his time campaigning against public education, walking residential streets in Avon on last Saturday to campaign against the local school district's operating referendum. He knocked on doors and urged residents to vote it down ahead of the November 4th election. So let's talk about our boy Micah Beckwith this week. Jackson, take your pick. Tee off on this asshole.
Yeah, he's a shithead. I mean, everything he does is just scandalous. It's like, what can we even say? Like, everything this guy does is just like full of crap. Like, this is the guy who says that criminals do not, like, much like Victoria Sparks, the person I'm running against here in District 5, he says that criminals do not deserve due process. Then how can you say they're criminals if you didn't take them to a court of law to be tried by a jury? So yeah, everything this guy, like, he wants to be a Donald Trump of Indiana. He wants to overturn democracy, repeal back, like, walk back human rights, and yeah, no, he's a massive piece of shit. Fuck that guy.
He certainly has that that gift of bullshit that Trump has. He is a very, very compelling personality, draws a lot of folks to him, but not always for the best purposes. Jennifer, I don't want to skip the investigation that's going on, but I want to focus on that campaigning against the referendum in Avon thing. Here we are. Here's the Christian nationalists, just like we talked about a little bit ago. They want to eliminate the social safety net and unload all of the public services onto churches. Is that what he's doing here in Avon?
I have no idea. I have to be honest. This man has grossed me out from the moment that he came on stage. I don't follow him at all. Like, I see what's in the news and I don't pay a lot of attention to him because it's just so gross. I mean, it's just so against everything that Christianity, as I know it, stands for. So, I don't know what he's doing. I think half of them don't know what they're doing. They're just spinning their wheels. They're just like a bunch of frat boys trying to, play games and stay in power. And at the same time, they're trying to hide all the bullshit that they're doing. behind closed doors, or I guess right there on the computer screen. So I'm sorry, I don't have a lot to say about him. I am
Listen,
grateful.
I understand it. The ick factor is very real. You don't want to get too close to anything associated with this guy. You might get some on you.
It's always
Simon,
something, though. I mean, it's always very random, not connected kind of things. Things that just keep coming up with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they may have not appeared to be connected, but I think in their own way, all of his sleaze is connected in the same
Right.
sort of
And
way.
it's
What do you think,
sleaze.
Simon?
It's sleaze. That's what happens when you have a group of people that are literally doing things that they're calling everybody out for. Like, it's, yeah.
Always projection, right?
Yeah, so my comment is, but wait, there's more.
That's probably a good one.
So you've got the stuff that went on in Micah Beckwith's office. You also have stuff going on in the churches that it's associated with, and the fellow pastors in those churches, in which there is, and I can't remember the exact details. So if you want to run through a myriad of conspiracy theories that are being turned into grand juries, go follow Kaz Jackson on Facebook. She has been posting a litany of things about his fellow pastors' associations, and I think it's one of the pastor's son has been arrested several times for child porn and other things. So, and I can't remember all the details off the top of my head because there's a lot of stuff.
It keeps coming and coming, doesn't it? Yeah. We talked about this last week. Beckwith's best friend and fellow pastor, I want to say his name is Nathan Peternell. He's like kind of the head of Life Church, where Micah is pastor at one of their many campuses. Well, Peternell's son got arrested last week. We talked about it on this show for possession of child sexual abuse material, among other gross images on his phone, including like sex tapes of his own parents. God knows how we got those. I think we also saw Beckwith's brother either get arrested or be accused of domestic abuse this same week. Yeah, Cass Jackson, great follow. Beckwith is a lot of shady stuff with that.
And then also I'd add that the attorney in Beckwith's office is also one of those that's implicated and involved. So yeah, you've got more of it in your head than I do, because it's just like whoa when you see it.
It's the fascist playbook, Flood the zone. If you can't keep track of every scandal, a whole lot of scandals going to get through. Hey, you know what? Speaking of disgusting human beings who use their religion as a facade to act like they're doing good in the world, let's look at Kristi Noem, who graced us with her presence this week. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem held a joint press conference Thursday at the Gary Chicago International Airport up in Gary with Indiana Governor Mike Braun to deliver updates on what they've dubbed Operation Midway Blitz, an immigration enforcement initiative that, it's primarily focused on Chicago. We talked about it at the top of the show, but also expands into Northwest Indiana. Noem said the sweep has resulted in 223 arrests, of which 146 were truck drivers since its start in September. Noem detailed the 287G agreement, which authorizes state police to enforce certain federal immigration laws as part of a broader partnership with ICE. In Indiana, efforts have largely focused on commercial vehicle enforcement along highways and at way stations. Northwest Indiana, a lot of major highway routes running through that part of the state. This includes identifying and removing people in the country illegally who hold commercial driver's license as part of Operation Midway Blitz, carried out in partnership with the Indiana State Police. She was greeted by a litany of protesters, not nearly enough. Jackson, I thought we were only going after the worst of the worst and the criminals and the rapists and the drug dealers. and we're going after truck drivers. What gives?
Well, their racism is proceeding. They're like wanting to have a good economy. You know, the economy is built up on, you know, immigrants, and they are what make this country great. So, you know, this is quite somewhat similar to like that South Korean bust where they had like over 300 workers, like vital workers that like we had agreed that they could be here to make like critical chip manufacturing. And, you know, we're hurting our transportation goods, you know, so what is this going to do to like our, you know, shipping and all that? So I'm just shocked Kristi Noem didn't shoot any dogs while she was here in Indiana. And yeah, ICE is a terrorist organization. We need to abolish it. And, you know, our governor going there to support these actions is immoral and absurd. We should call him out for that.
Absolutely. Jennifer, thoughts?
This is going to be one of those ones where I might piss people off. I think so. Safety is a concern. I mean, my ex-husband was a truck driver, and like those things are deadly. They are big. I think that, you know, people should be licensed and they should have their own license. I don't think this is a way to go about it. I know that, you know, this is ICE and that's what they're looking at. But as I also look at it from my perspective, that this, you know, as a crossroads of the United States, there's a reason Indiana has that, is because we have a ton of truck drivers. We're the crossroads, right? And so I do think that we should pay attention to safety. And I'm not just saying because somebody is an immigrant that they're not safe. But if you are looking at people that are operating under licenses that they maybe have not taken the test for, or they're not qualified for, that is a concern of mine. However, it's also a huge concern of mine that they could be doing it a different way. So
they just care that they're brown. That's really all they care about.
Yeah.
Right. I will know. Yeah. These people have commercial driver's licenses. So they passed a test somewhere or something. Simon, am I wrong?
I listened to some of that press conference, and I've had jobs where I was a truck driver in the past, and the numbers didn't make sense to me, because I think at the end of the day, there was only like 22 commercial truck drivers. And as she kept explaining, it was like, oh, well, now they're driving box trucks. Now they're driving, you know, smaller thing, you know, regular pickup trucks kind of thing. And it was like, oh, well, these are minivan drivers. Well, how are they different from ICE?
Yeah, that is kind of how they seem to do it with some of these, though, right? They make you think that they're looking at one thing, and as you're talking more, I didn't watch the press conference, so
yeah.
And as you're talking more and more, you know, that's what I'm saying. It could be done definitely differently.
Yeah.
So let's move on. And I know, Jennifer, you wanted to talk about this one. I'm glad I got it in here. So this week, it was announced by the Indiana, FSSA, that the state will not have any new childcare vouchers available until at least 2027. So officials expect this freeze on vouchers to help low-income working parents pay for child support continue through the end of 2026. According to the fiscal update Wednesday from FSSA, the state stopped issuing these new vouchers last December and has nearly 31,000 children on the wait list as of September. The Child Care and Development Fund, or CCDF, vouchers are largely paid for by the federal government. They help cover the cost of daycare, preschool, and before and after school care for eligible families. According to Adam Olson, the director of the Office of Early Childhood and Out-of-School Learning, the office, quote, simply does not have the funding available to prudently begin enrollment before that date, end quote. And I'm going to go ahead and come back to you on this one, Jennifer. I mean,
I've used this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say I have used this before. It's been many, many years, but I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the CCDF, the Child Care Fund, in that it is also a sliding scale. So it's not like all of these people are out there getting free childcare. At one point, by the time I finally phased out of it, I have 4 children. I think I was paying $1,000 a month. So that's a lot. And I was getting assistance on that. So this is just one of those situations that, again, is going to disproportionately affect women. For one, if they're not adding new spots for 2 years, that's ridiculous. That's just a whole lot of people that are not going to be able to be in the workforce, and then that continues to poverty just continues through that. One of the things that they don't talk about is that over the course of this time, people like me phase out of that. So people stop using that. So for a 2-year period, even though people are stepping back and people might be paying more money towards their own childcare or no longer using the program, they're not even going to be using that money to help get other people into the program. And we know childcare, this has been going on for decades. Even during COVID, there was just a whole lot of issues about childcare. The people that work in these childcare facilities, even including like Head Start, they don't make a lot of money. And so these are people that are also going to have to start looking for jobs. So I think there's already some Head Start offices or programs in the state of Indiana that are not going to be happening. They're shut down now temporarily, hopefully. But what's going to happen to those families in the meantime? They are not going to have care. So people that don't have care are going to maybe have to leave the workforce. On top of the people that are working in the childcare, they may have to leave the workforce or go elsewhere. So it's just another one of those things where the state of Indiana and the national government shows who is important.
Yeah.
And who is not.
Jackson, let me ask you, childcare as infrastructure was one, among other, human services as infrastructure, was one of the major components of Joe Biden's original Build Back Better as proposed in 2021. Now, if you recall, Democrats in Congress sort of split over whether to do this thing. We got the Inflation Reduction Act out of it, which did a lot of good things, but kind of left out all of the human investment. If you had been in Congress at that time, would you have held fast like the Squad and some of the others, or eventually relented to get half a measure done?
No, so like these things are human rights, and you can thank Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema for slaughtering that bill and all of the that could have been like the most progressive thing. Joe Biden would have been a hero, and Kamala Harris would have walked through the 2024 election being like the working class hero. But no, of course I would have stayed strong for human rights. And that's what my campaign, we're advocating for, on top of those policies you mentioned. We need universal daycare, universal school meals. Not a single child should go hungry. In Indiana, 1 in 5 children are food insecure. That is unacceptable. We need, paid family leave for parents to actually take care of their children once they're born or adopted, and many other programs, universal pre-K, everything. We need to do these programs and build a system that actually takes care and invest into our future. I think parents and children have that right. Parents have a right to raise their children without a fear of how they're going to pay to feed their kids and be able to work after once they're growing up a little bit. Go able to get back in the workplace, if they choose to do that, and not worry is this caretaker underfunded? Is the facility underfunded? Do we are they even affordable? It should be free at the point of service, as taxpayer money goes. And we need to take care of our people.
Simon, let me ask you. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I just want to throw in there, I don't know if anybody caught this, but New Mexico, which I actually used to live there in high school, they now have, universal childcare. And New Mexico, so I think that's important to know. If that state can do it, we can do it.
Simon, I wanted to ask you, this is one of my primary complaints as an American is that we treat everything here as a friggin' commodity. It's got to be something you can charge for. Childcare. Why don't we just treat this as a service, as something the government just does because it's the right thing to do? How do they handle this in the UK?
They just do it. I mean,
I love that.
It took a lot of legislation in order to move, and like with the National Health Service, there were models that existed before on a local level, like for the mining communities, where they would have, a lot of accidents and stuff. They would have their own medical communities that they put together, and they were basically, you put in, I can't remember what it was, a shilling or whatever every month, and then that paid for your healthcare. The whole idea is that you have an agreement between the individual and the state to provide these services. And so the individual is responsible for the contribution, which is usually done through taxes, and then the state then provides back the services. And I mean, this could be extended to anything, when you think about it, it's like, the whole Medicare for All thing is something that already exists for those that are 65 and up. It's, I'll just say, slightly broken, but it's pretty easy to fix. And then you take the fixed version and roll that out for everybody. Daycare is a service that is essential for the economy, because people can't work if they're stuck looking after their kids. So it's like things like that. You're building a better nation and a more productive nation by providing those services.
I tell you, Simon, no, you really nailed it. We talked about it. Jackson brought it up in vis-a-vis these truck drivers. We're shooting it ourselves in the foot economically by messing with our logistics system. We're shooting ourselves in the foot by not providing things like childcare and education and making investments that will pay off
absolutely
many, many, many times over in the long run. It literally is cutting off your nose to spite your face, and it is so frustrating the way we do things. I want to move on to our final story this week, and frankly, it is a shame that I didn't get to this one previously until it came across my feed. So the good folks at Status Quo covered this one, interviewing a Lapel, Indiana resident named Brianna Davis about a growing drinking water crisis there and in the surrounding counties, in which residents' drinking and bathing water has been coming out brown, orange, and yellow, while also carrying a foul smell. Now, despite this, local officials have done nothing and told residents just to flush their water until it's not discolored. Mind you, even if it's the right color, there still may be other bad stuff going on in it. And this story, again, has received virtually no national attention and has received very little local media attention. And, part of that's my fault. It was there in the Indy Star. As I saw this, I'm like, oh, well, has anybody been covering this? Oh, yeah, they have. But it just gets mentioned in passing. Jackson, this is in your neck of the woods, isn't it?
Yeah, Madison County. Yeah, and I watched that whole video. Shout out Status Quo News. Jordan Sheridan's awesome. Been following them, so make sure you guys give them a follow on YouTube. And yeah, I've actually been talking to some people about this. Like at the Madison County Fair, they had a whole booth about like how we're gonna clean the clean water, the dirty water and all that. So it's something that's on our radar, and a lot of people in this area are concerned about. And it's absurd that our state government or federal government, like the problem with Flint, Michigan is still ongoing. And that was like under the Obama administration that they gave them a lot of flack for. So it's absurd that we can't have a robust infrastructure, program in this country to fix the water problems and, make sure that our people have access to water, as is their human right, food, water, shelter. Yeah, we need to step in. We need to subsidize whatever we need to subsidize and make sure that these people in Lapel, Indiana, get the clean water that they deserve.
Very good. Simon, I wanted to ask you, you spend a lot of time organizing in rural spaces. This is one of those things where small towns like Lapel and probably a lot of the other small rural communities that you're visiting and speaking with are running into these same sort of infrastructure issues, and they just don't have the bandwidth as a small community to do the big things that they need to do. Isn't this one of these situations that just begs for the pooling of resources from a larger group, like, say, the whole state or the whole country? Or, but that's communism, right? What do you think?
This story is not unique. we have many towns in Indiana and throughout the country that have very similar problems. So Martinsville, Indiana is another place. It was known for its mineral spring waters. And you would have dignitaries come to Martinsville at the beginning of the 20th century, to enjoy those. In the 70s, there was a cleaner downtown that decided to put all its chemicals into the drains, which went straight into the aquifer. So now they have 3 or 4 toxic plumes under the town. They no longer have the mineral waters, and then the organizing we did there raised enough awareness to get a couple of Superfund sites declared. So, and I think Lapel is in a very similar situation, that they're at the point now where they're getting recognized as Superfund sites, which means that the extra resources can come in. But I have not seen a lot of successful remediation that wouldn't have necessarily occurred over time naturally. So I'm a little skeptical about a lot of the resources that have been brought into these situations to fix things. And I mean, if your water is brown or even any kind of off clear color, you've got some problems there that have got to be fixed.
Jennifer, is this something you're seeing down in communities in your area as well?
Yes. So I live in Charlestown, and Charlestown has historically had a huge issue with ucky water, like worse than that. And some of that has been taken care of. But what is interesting about my community and Simon's community, the Martinsville community, is that American Water has, for several years in my community in Charlestown and Martinsville, has been showing the forever chemicals in their water.
Yeah.
And that's just an issue that nobody's talking enough about. I know that I had alerted our local government about this 4 years ago, because there's been some articles just kind of buried about the Martinsville community and my community with the American Water, but it still is a big issue. And and then we're also over here where there's, we're again talking about solar farms, and then also data centers and stuff like that. So with water in this state that's historically had a lot of issues, and we're not even addressing those and adding more things on top of it, that, this is just going to get worse and worse for the Hoosier State.
Yeah. And
Water is, go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, part of the problem as well is that some of the people that are responsible for the watersheds, when they're going out and testing the water in the watersheds at various places, because most of the watersheds are actually managed as sewer districts, they are testing for biological chemicals, in other words, bacteria and sort of viruses and that kind of thing. That's what they're testing for in the water. They're not looking for PFAS. They're not looking for industrial chemicals. They're just looking to see if it's got, an out of bounds level of bacteria.
The other thing about this article that we're talking about initially is with the leaders, the local leaders are just saying, the water is okay to drink the water, right? I'd like to see how many of them actually pick up a glass and drink that water. And in Charlestown, grandmothers were putting pictures on Facebook of like filling up their bathtub with just, water that's the color of Jackson's shirt or Scott's shirt. And, would you bathe your grandchild in this? So I think it's just also just the huge disconnect between some of those people making the policies and what they're telling us.
Breonna Davis in that story said that her dog had died because of an inflamed liver. The dog drank that water and then the dog freaking died.
I worry about that with my dogs too, because I don't drink the water here because it is so there's so many chemicals in it. Like as soon as you open the faucet, you can even flush the toilet and you can smell it. And I worry about my dogs. I'm like, do I need to give them bottled water?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
It really shows kind of like how far we've fallen as a society that we cannot meet the most basic human need of our people, and that is fresh, clean drinking water. Water is life.
And it's more than that,
um,
because this whole episode, we've talked about those basic human things that people need, right? Food, water, healthcare, childcare, all of those things that the powers that be are just throwing to the side.
And we could have them. There is plenty to go around. There are billionaires and oligarchs and others hoarding these resources and keeping them from us. And only when we exercise our power all together as people will we, change the system. Listen, that is it for today. I want to thank my guests, Simon, Jackson, and Jennifer. Let me give each of you a chance just to say goodbye and tell the folks where they can find you. Let me begin with you, Simon, down there in the corner. And Michelle says, I got to make sure you remember to pitch Organizing Indiana.
Yes, I need to do that. First, I'm going to pitch a film that we made a little while ago on the Flint, Michigan water crisis. So basically, the film is called Flint Fatigue, and you can find it at flintfatigue.com. And that was a film that I helped produce with Status Quo News. Also, Indiana Rural Summit is important because that's the support structure for the Indiana House candidates for 2026. And that's indianaruralsummit.org. And then if you're looking for resources and organizations to connect with, essentially you can find people that have similar mindsets and similar goals, and it's important that we stick together. You can find that at organizingindiana.org. And then there's a number of resources there, and check it out.
And Simon, you've got your own personal website too, which folks should just look at because you're an interesting dude with varied interests.
I do stuff. So the funniest interview I've ever been to was a guy said, we need somebody that can do stuff. Do you do stuff? And I said, why, yes, I do stuff. And he said, great, you're hired. If anybody does that to you, run away as fast as you can. simonhiggs.com, and my business website is higgs.com.
All right, very good. Jennifer, how about you? Where can the good folks find you?
Well, you can find me pretty much anywhere. Southern Indiana, up to Indy. I like to go all over the state. But as far as where I put most of my stuff out, I just pretty much am stuck on Facebook. I got some on Instagram, but I don't even check that stuff. I need to get up to speed on all the socials. But it's Jennifer David for Hoosiers 2026. I also own several businesses, and then my own personal page, which I really talk a lot about late diagnosed female autism, is just Jennifer David.
All right, excellent. Finally, Jackson, how about you? Where can the folks learn out more about you and your campaign for Congress there?
Right. So we're running in the 5th District of Indiana. We're going to replace Victoria Sparks in 2026. We're the only grassroots campaign running for this district right now. So you guys, please go to jacksonfranklinforcongress.com to donate, join our team, and see more about the campaign. You can find us on social media by typing in Jackson Franklin for Congress. We're everywhere. Please, we need all the help we get. This is a people-powered movement. If you believe in things like healthcare is a human right, like Medicare for all, women's rights, legalizing cannabis, paid family leave, I could go on and on and on about all these policies, but younger, angrier Bernie Sanders of Indiana, we need your help. Please go to the website, jacksonfranklinforcongress.com, to donate. This movement runs on with good people like you helping it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. And for me, you can find me at whosleft.us, where, hey, we've got a couple of special events coming up this week. Tuesday, I will be live on the interwebs with Victoria Martz and Christina Person. They're going to join me to preview next Saturday's Hoosiers for Healthcare debate in Batesville, featuring all of your Democratic candidates for House District 9. I think we got an independent candidate involved as well, Aaron Houchin. As usual, nowhere to be seen. Then next Saturday, I will be in Batesville broadcasting live from the scene of said debate. Come see me there. If you can't see me there, we'll be broadcasting it here. And I'll see you here next week for another episode of this show. But until that time, on behalf of my guests, I am Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana. Except for Nazis. Fuck you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.